big.
Championship week, starts of the week, guys that we expect to exceed expectations, whether that's a streamer or a flex flyer that we think is going to pop. Maybe a guy that's a locked and loaded stud that disappointed last week that we think is going to bounce back. Whatever it may be, let's get into these names here. We'll go quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. I'll let you start it off at the QB spot. Who you got as your Week 16 championship week quarterback start?
It's so fitting that it's championship week because my guy's Tom Brady for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going against the 29th ranked team versus quarterbacks, the Detroit Lions. And Tom Brady on the year, I think, has exceeded a lot of expectations. Quarterback 10 on the season, a very solid year for a 43-year-old. And you look at this Lions team, and this one's all about the matchup. I mean, we could talk about Brady all day. The weapons, Godwin, we finally saw an AB deep touchdown last week. Mike Evans finally looks healthy, even though he gets hurt every game, but then comes back. So you got three great options. Gronk finally is coming into his own as well. The running game, it looks like Rojo might miss this week, and Fournette did fall into the end zone twice last week, but he didn't necessarily look great. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of those games where Tampa Bay says, hey, let's just throw the ball until we get the game in control and then run the clock out. So I think Tom Brady is a great option. You also look at the Lions team last week against Tennessee, 36 points given up to Ryan Tannehill. The week before, 30 given up to Aaron Rodgers. They're giving up 21 points per game to the quarterback spot all season. So I think Tom Brady is a very safe option this week. I think he's an option with upside. And I don't think this is one of those games where the Bucs are just going to come out and control the ground game. I mean, the only thing I think that could possibly go wrong for Tom Brady this week is if they hit a couple of chunk plays or get a pass interference call in the end zone or something like that and just happen to get it inside the 5 and have Fournette fall into the end zone a couple of times, taking away a touchdown upside. Outside of a situation like that, I think a 20-point floor is very reasonable for Tom Brady.
No, I think I'm with you. I think he's a smash play this week, locked in QB1. And what's crazy is he's actually on pace for 37 touchdowns on the year.
That's
would
crazy.
Have led the league in touchdowns in 2019. So Tom Brady is balling out. Don't get it mistaken. Yes, he's old, but he is still able to produce almost every single week at this point. My quarterback start of the week, we talked about it earlier with some of the start sits. It's Baker Mayfield against the New York Jets. The Bake Show is cooking. He's the QB3 over the last 4 weeks, throwing multiple touchdowns in back-to-back games. He's finishing top 3 in completion percentage over those weeks. And Baker, I mean, he looks good out there. He's more poised than ever. He's has control over the offense. He's making smart decisions. I think you just got to ride the hot hand if you're streaming the QB position. Maybe you plugged him in last week or the week before and you said, hey, I got this guy off waivers. I think I'm just going to keep plugging him in. I think you can continue that against the Jets. And I know with Baker, his efficiency on play action has been talked about over and over again. But now we're seeing his efficiency improve across the board outside of just that play action. He's 7th in the league in deep ball completion percentage. He's top 5 on the year in QBR and passer rating. Every time this man drops back to pass, he's making plays. And I know they just shocked the Rams, but I'm not expecting the Jets to be able to cool Baker off when they're 30th against the QB. They're 26th against the wide receiver position. This is a team that likes to funnel the production to the wide receivers. They're going to try to stop the run with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, which opens up plenty of opportunity for Baker Mayfield to blow up again this week. So continue to ride the wave in Week 16.
I love it for your brownies, Steph. Let's move on to the running back spot. I'm going with J.K. Dobbins against the New York Giants. I mean, we talked about the rookies a lot last week, which was a lot of fun. We said, if you have a rookie in your lineup this week, they all had good matchups too. It was like Swift, Dobbins, JT, CEH, James Robinson, Cam Akers. Cam Akers was the only one that was a bummer. He ended up leaving that game with an injury. Also had a 20-some-odd yard touchdown called back due to a holding penalty. So take that away, and he actually would have had a solid week. CEH got hurt as well, but like James Robinson, J.K. Dobbins, DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor, this rookie class is finally coming into their own and taking over these backfields. J.K. Dobbins is no exception. He scored in 4 straight games that he's played in. The Giants matchup is good as well. I mean, they're giving up 25 points per game to opposing running backs. So I think the Ravens are going to come out, take care of business against this New York Giants team. I think they're going to lead in this game. I think there's going to be plenty of opportunity for J.K. Dobbins to run out that clock. Over 50% of snaps in the last 2 games. And Steph, did you tell me that Mark Ingram was a healthy scratch?
Mark Ingram was a healthy scratch in Week 15. I'm guessing he's going to get the same treatment again unless there's an injury that happens or something like that. And I got to give props to you. Before the season, we had a big debate. Can Mark Ingram finish as an RB2 this year. You said he was going to finish outside the top 30. You had me on that one. I know it was a vicious debate. I feel like a lot of people were on my side. We were putting out polls on Twitter. Everyone was like, oh, Mark Ingram's for sure going to finish at least as an RB2, just looking at what he did in 2019. But, I mean, he's been removed from the hot seat in Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, J.K. Dobbins 5th in the NFL amongst running backs with 5.2 yards per carry as well. So give this guy 15 carries in this game. He's going to get you the yardage production. He'll get a reception every now and then as well, and he's got that touchdown upside. So J.K. Dobbins against the Giants, keep rolling him out there. He's been great for you to this point. He's a rock-solid RB2.
You think he's an RB1 next year? Are you willing to take him in the first 3 rounds?
Yeah, first 3 rounds, sure. Yeah.
First round?
No.
Even if he gets the keys to the kingdom?
I mean, keys to the king. If they got rid of Mark Ingram and
Gus Edwards as a free agent
and didn't bring in anyone else, that changes things, but I don't see that happening. We'll see.
Well, my running back start of the week, you went with a little bit more of a chalky option. I think if you had Dobbins, you're starting him. And I'm glad now we got the stamp of approval on that one. Mine's a little bit more of a streamer name. This one could end up hurting me. And we'll see how things go as far as injuries and who's in the lineup. But my start of the week, a smash play. I put this out on Twitter with an LOL behind it because Leonard Fournette is a smash play in week 16. In championship week, you can start Leonard Fournette.
You know how I feel about him.
Yeah, you hate Lenny. I know you're a Rojo guy. I've always been more of a Leonard Fournette guy. And last week with Rojo on COVID IR, coming off of finger surgery, Leonard Fournette played 66% of snaps, had 14 carries. None of them were really super efficient, but he had 2 touchdowns on the ground. He caught 3 of 5 targets for 16 yards. And I'm expecting more of the same in week 16. Detroit, the second highest over of the week. Detroit versus Tampa Bay. Detroit's dead last against the running back position. And the reason I was taking all those Leonard Fournette victory laps over Rojo earlier this year, all those reasons are still exist. Fournette gets used as a bell cow back. He's going to see double-digit carries, goal line work, receiving work. And the same upside we like about Ronald Jones, the double-digit touchdown upside, is still there, as we just saw against the Falcons where he put up 2 touchdowns. If you're somehow streaming running back or have him on your bench and you're in a tough spot, I think you can plug in Leonard Fournette in Week 16. As for we're recording this on Wednesday. As of right now, Ronald Jones is doubtful to play. If he does play, you're definitely benching Leonard Fournette. But if Rojo's out, I'm willing to plug in Fournette as a low-end RB2.
It's spicy, but let's move on to the wide receiver spot. I've got Cooper Kupp as my wide receiver start of the week because he's been very disappointing lately. He had that big game in Week 11 against Tampa Bay with 11 catches for 145 yards. Jared Goff targeted him like every single play, it felt like, in that game. Since then, he's been disappointing. Only 6, 15, 14, 8 fantasy points. That's not the production you're really looking for from Cooper Kupp. But he's got a matchup against Seattle this week. They're 32nd in the NFL against the wide receiver spot. And the big thing with Cooper Kupp, the big narrative is, when they do the 2 tight end sets and the 12 personnel, Cooper Kupp doesn't quite see the snaps. But Cooper Kupp's snap count hasn't really fallen off a cliff when this production has dropped off. He's still seen over 62% of snaps in each game, and he's been over 82% of snaps in 2 of those 4 games. Actually, the 2 bad performances, the 2 really bad single-digit performances, he's been over 80% of snaps. So he's on the field. It's just been a matter of game flow and Jared Goff looking at the options that the defense gives him. I do think some certain defenses can kind of scheme and take away certain players, and I think they've done that with Cooper Kupp over the last several games. Seattle has not only been bad against wide receivers, but they've struggled against the slot. So I think Cooper Kupp is a lock for 7 to 8 targets this week. If he gets those 7 to 8 targets, I think he's going to be hyper productive with them. And he's due for some positive regression in the touchdown category. Only 3 on the season. I would love to see Cooper Kupp get into the end zone again this week against Seattle and give you a solid 20-plus point performance in your title game.
Very nice, very nice. Start your studs. Don't get cute here. Plug Cooper Kupp in despite the bad performances. My wide receiver start of the week, I'm going back to another deep option. It's Russell Gage.
Wow.
Wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons. He has a matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs this week, so you love to see that. And I have him as a strong flex or desperation wide receiver 2 streamer. We had him in this segment late last season. And you look at the matchup, the second highest over on the week, tied with the one I just talked about, Detroit versus Tampa Bay. We know the Falcons love to get into these shootouts. And we know Kansas City is the best offense in the NFL with the most points, the most yards per game. And with or without Julio Jones, Russell Gage has been producing as of late. Since the Week 10 bye, Gage has averaged over 80% of snaps and 8 targets per game. He's seeing a ton of usage right now on a team that relies heavily on the pass, has almost no run game right now, and he's in the perfect game script. So over the last 3 weeks, his fantasy scores have been 15, 19, and 18 PPR points. I expect that to continue in the championship week.
I like it, Steph. I like that deep shot right there. If you're in a deeper league, that could be a league winner right there. I know Russell Gage was one of our homeboys last year with the deep shot, so he's back like he never left here in 2020. But let's get into these nasty tight end spots. And this is one of those spots where if you can hit on your tight end spot in your championship game, that could be all it takes to take you over the top. And there's options out there. Now, this guy I'm about to bring up probably isn't on your waiver wire, but he's someone who has kind of been back and forth all year. You might have a couple tight ends on your roster. You don't know whether you can trust this guy moving forward. It's Noah Fant. And, you know, what I've been doing at the tight end spot all season long, I've liked Evan Ingram in a lot of matchups as well. And I've just been looking at the targets and looking at what is happening and what opportunities are there. And at the tight end spot, so often you're like, oh, I just need a guy that's going to get the touchdown. It's like, I'm going to roll out Jared Cook and hope it's a touchdown week. Otherwise, it's a bust. Or Austin Hooper and hope it's a touchdown week. Otherwise, it's a bust. With guys like Noah Fant, you don't need a touchdown to have a productive week. Last week, 8 for 68 in the touchdown, 20 fantasy points. But even without the touchdown, that's really solid volume. The matchup this week is against the LA Chargers, who are not only 22nd against the tight end, but the Chargers and Justin Herbert have been a shootout team all season long. Their defense is depleted by injuries. They're not, you know, the team they were coming into the season with Bosa and Derwin James and all these healthy pieces. So they've been kind of a struggle all season long, and I know they're already looking to next year, but I do think points are going to get scored in this game. Drew Lock has the ability to turn it on at certain times, and I was looking at tight end targets this season. Noah Fant is actually 6th in the NFL in targets at the tight end position, and he has missed a game. He has left a game on the first drive after playing 8% of snaps, and he has played a game with a wide receiver as his starting quarterback, yet he is still 6th at the tight end position in targets. 11 targets last week, 7 the fully healthy week. You know, he left the game previous to last week, but before that, 7 targets. So he's been a guy who's heavily used in this offense. I think you can roll him out there against the Chargers and hope for a solid volume week and get double-digit points. If he gets the touchdown, he just could win you your championship.
There's certainly been a wide receiver carousel in Denver. Sometimes it's Tim Patrick, sometimes it's Jerry Jeudy, sometimes it's KJ Hamler, but Noah Fant is like the solid, consistent option. You know he's going to be a anchor point for that entire offense. You know, you're going with the young gun, the young rising tight end, Noah Fant. I'll go TJ Hawkinson. It seems like these guys always get lumped in together. Both came out of Iowa together. Well, didn't they come out in the same draft class?
This Iowa, what are they putting in their corn there where they're putting up TJ Hawkinson and Noah Fant in the same draft class at tight end? That's crazy.
Well, I think you're starting both of these guys if you have them. You know, if you're not looking at, you know, a Kelsey, a Waller, in Andrews, somebody like that. And George Kittle might be back this week as well. We can talk about him real quick here before I sign off if he's a starter or a sit this week. But TJ Hawkinson has the matchup against Tampa Bay. Already talked about how good this matchup is. Second highest over-under on the week. Tampa Bay's 26th against the tight end position. And last week against the Tennessee Titans, TJ Hawkinson disappointed. And that's just a reason why you may be tempted to sit him this week over some waiver options, especially if your waivers are dead. And there's some interesting names that are out there that have been productive. 0.8 fantasy points last week in a shootout game script. Caught 2 of 4 targets for 18 yards and a fumble. But what we saw was DeAndre Swift get 2 goal line carries and put them in. That's not going to happen every single game for the Detroit Lions. TJ Hawkinson's still close to 80% of snaps over the last 4 weeks. He's averaging 6.5 targets per game. That's beautiful for the tight end position in this landscape. And he's sitting at the tight end 4 on the year, tight end 6 in fantasy points per game. Hawkinson, I don't want to say he's a locked and loaded stud, but he's a guy that if you have him, you're starting him, no questions asked. Hopefully he didn't totally kill you and you're still in the championship here. But I'm expecting Hawkinson to regress to the mean with the stars aligning in a smash week 16 play. Real quickly, let's talk. George Kittle, assuming he's active and healthy and in the lineup, you're in a championship week. Maybe you've been streaming a guy like Irv Smith, or maybe you picked up Cole Fournette.
George
right?
Kittle. I'll start George Kittle if he's active over everyone except Kelsey and Waller.
Wow, lock that in. I think I'm feeling the same way.
He's not going to be active unless he's 100% healthy. I mean, they're shutting down Debo and Mostert for the season. They're out of playoff contention. If George Kittle plays, it's
because he wants to be out there and he wants to
it's
help
because he
the
wants
team.
to be out there, and they're not going to play him if he's not 100% healthy with nothing to play for while they're shutting down these other guys. So if he plays, I think he's getting the full allotment of snaps, and he's going to have a great game.
Yeah, I think people are going to have PTSD back to that Keenan Allen situation last week. Heart goes out to anybody who ended up starting Keenan Allen. That was absolutely brutal. Just worst situation imaginable.